I didn't want to be a half-blood. If you're reading this because you think you might be one, my advice is, close this book right now. Believe whatever lie your mom or dad told you about your birth, and try to lead a normal life. Being a half-blood, it's dangerous. It's scary. Most of the time, it gets you killed in painful, nasty ways. If you're a normal kid reading this because you think it's fiction, great, read on. I envy you for being able to believe that none of this ever happened. But if you recognize yourself in these pages, if you feel something stirring inside, stop reading immediately. You might be one of us. And once you know that, it's only a matter of time before they sense it too. And they'll come for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. My name is Percy Jackson. I'm 12 years old. Until a few months ago, I was a boarding student at Yancey Academy, a private school for troubled kids in upstate New York. Am I a troubled kid? Yeah, you could say that.
Welcome to In Each Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new. Welcome to Lightning Thief Month, everybody! I am your host, Jasmine Garcia, and joining me today are...
Your unofficial co-host and the vaporizer of teachers, it is River.
You may think I live in the walls of this podcast as Sam Marchioni, but this book has lived in my walls since I was 11.
In other words, the perfect age for this.
Oh, this was fully a 5th grade reading assignment for me.
Oh,
this was homework for me. And it fucking rocked.
You lucky bitch. I never had homework this fun.
Oh my god. So I have to tell you about how hardcore I went in on this series as a whole.
Of course.
This was prime real estate. So this was assigned to me in 11th grade. Sea of Monsters had come out by that point. I was right at the time for Titan's Curse when it was getting released. So I'd finished those first 2 books and I was like, what happens next? What happens next? And then actually I got to go to a press tour thing for Riordan. He answered a question I asked about one of the characters coming back because I was disappointed that it seemed like he had written them out. And he was like, yeah, I can't spoil too much, but she is coming back. And I was like, yes! And also I won a Battle of the Labyrinth t-shirt because of that. Rick Riordan seems like a generally nice guy. I know there are valid criticisms to be had about them, but in general, he seems cool.
Well-intentioned.
They call him Uncle Rick for a reason, from my understanding.
I will take him over Little Miss Black Mold is making me do transphobia at Olympic athletes.
You heard that too, right?
Fuck that bitch.
Fuck that bitch indeed. And no, I was literally talking about the whole black mold thing on the Dark Universe server. I'm just like, wait a minute, are you telling me that might be why this is happening?
I mean, some people are also just racist, but...
Well, yes.
I'm gonna have a stroke.
We're all having strokes over this bitch. Anyway.
I was already a Greek mythology kid when I was introduced
to
this
in middle school, yes.
Yes, I was gonna say, of course you did, you're queer.
This got its hooks into me in a really big way. Before the Heroes of Olympus series came out, there was definitely badly written fanfiction about me and my friends as the 7 half-bloods of the next great prophecy.
Oh,
it got me criticized so badly that I took it off of fanfiction.net.
Oh!
Stop stomping on young writers starting out, okay? It was not the worst thing I put out on fanfiction.net when I was 13. There were lemons in other fics I wrote.
Oh, no!
Christ. I hate that I understood that sentence.
I think we all do. But
there's
anyway.
Your power word age, River. Power word age uno reverse.
Most excellent. As you've guessed from the announcement of yet another theme month, because our summer got all fucked up, we are going to be covering the first tale of the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. We're covering the book, the movie, the musical, and the first season of the TV show. And River is responsible for this mostly.
Listen,
yep.
We couldn't do Keeping Up with the Olympians because we were distracted by shiny objects, and I said, Percy's birthday is in August.
It wasn't just
much in August.
It was not just shiny objects, it was the strike. We definitely would have done it.
Shiny objects and the strike.
Oh, speaking of strike, support to the striking VA actors.
Yes.
Solidarity forever, support your local voice actor.
Yes. Anyway, go on, River.
And August is Percy's birth month. So I said, we have nothing in August. Percy month. To put into perspective the age gap, formally solidify the power and age of it all. I was in 6th grade when Heroes was coming out, when Heroes of Olympus was coming out. Like, Son of Neptune had just come out, and I had to wait for Mark of Athena, and one of my like friends got me into it, and I like read his copy of it, and then I got Mark of Athena, and I also went to a press junket thing for House of Hades, so my copy of House of Hades is signed, but I didn't get to Percy until 7th grade, where I promptly read the books out of order. Um, because I had read one when the movie had come out, because my original copy of the first book has the movie cover that my dad bought for when the movie was coming out, which is very silly goofy, but we will talk about that on Sunday. So I had that copy, and I read through that, and I was like sort of interested, but I was also distracted by shiny objects because I was 10 and had other things to be reading and doing. So in 7th grade, my English teacher had a copy of Titan's Curse on her shelf of like random books she had in her classroom. And I was like, it's post-test. I have nothing better to do because I finished the test early, because of course I fucking did. So I plowed through it in like a single sitting. Then I went to the library, picked up Labyrinth, picked up Last Olympian. Yeah. And then I had to go back for Sea of Monsters because they didn't have Sea of Monsters in originally. So I had to go back to it. And then my senior year of high school, I borrowed my friend's Nook, and I read through all of them on her Nook because I didn't have a whole collective copy. I do now. They're mismatched copies of various covers from...
When
like,
you say that, you hurt me in my book goblin soul.
Oh, that I have mismatched covers? In my defense, I bought them all secondhand. So I have 2 copies of Lightning Thief, because this is my good copy. This is my first edition hardcover that I found in a secondhand shop for like $4. It does have its original book jacket. It's just downstairs because I didn't want to like shred it while I was traveling. And also Dog has a tendency to destroy slipcovers. It's a whole thing. So if we need book notations / page numbers, I got the notations. But yeah, so my connection to Percy is like that. I was also queer in middle school. I had like one of my first books that I bought from like a book fair was a thin, like an illustrated book of Greek myths that had a really wild selection of Greek myths. I think I still have it. It's in like my
Was it Daulaires?
I
With
don't
the chariot
know.
on the front cover?
There was a Hydra on the cover.
Okay, so then it wasn't Daulaires.
No, that was my experience with like Greek mythology, and then this is like my secondary interaction with it. So it's been interesting, and I have discovered I cannot think about this book in a vacuum, but we will get to it.
Well, I am the outlier here because I'm kind of right smack dab in the middle of the average ages of the IER family, I think. I'm like 4 years older than Sam. I missed the Percy Jackson series by that much, basically. And my first interaction with this story, don't judge me too harshly, was in fact the movie. It was a movie night with my family. We all quite enjoyed it, because I had never even heard of this book by the time I saw the movie. And it was only when, you go on the internet, obviously, especially in my circles, you're going to start finding out about this series because it was rather popular, of course. And that was when I found out, oh, people are mad about this movie. Okay. I was like, okay, I will make a note to read this book sometime. But, I think by that point I was like, I'm too old for the middle grade stuff. I mean, I don't think I called the middle grade at the time. I only really recently started calling things by that because I think it was just before the whole YA boom that started with Twilight and the Hunger Games.
2010 would have been right as the Hunger Games were gaining steam.
Yeah.
In book form. The movies not quite hot yet.
So we'll take this moment to channel the good aspects of C.S. Lewis. It's okay to read YA middle grade stuff.
Yes, 100%. And of course, I have mentioned before that I was part of like this RP group that was it was mostly Disney, but there was some Percy Jackson influence in it as well. One of my friends...
Percy Jackson is Disney. Like,
now it is, yes.
No, it was.
Even before the Disney Plus, Disney Hyperion was published.
It's a Disney Hyperion book. So
was it always a Disney thing?
It was always being published by Disney. But for some reason, 20th Century Fox got the movie, and we're not here to talk about the movie. I will talk about the movie slightly, because back when the TV show initially finished, we recorded some thoughts. I was a bitch. I was very defensive about this, but I need you to understand the kind of person I am and the kind of person that this book series makes me regress to. So the third movie in the Turf Wizard series I saw when I was 9 years old. I stood up in the theater afterwards and declared it to be the worst movie that I had ever seen.
By contrast, the third Turf Wizard movie is the only one I genuinely enjoy and will watch out of context.
That tells us everything we need to know about you two as people, I think.
Yeah, so the point is, this was back when I really, really loved the Turf Wizard series, and it was a very big part of my personality. Yep. And so this book series, was this right when the Turf Wizard series was ending? I feel like it was.
It was getting to it.
Yeah,
like I think this came to me like right after book 7 had happened, so I had a hole in my heart, and it filled it completely. To the point where it was very easy to go, friendship ended with the turf, now I roll with Uncle Rick to a degree.
So it prepared you for the inevitable, basically.
It made the break easier, but as a result, I became exceedingly protective of it, especially after the movie happened and gave me that third Turf Wizard movie feeling again of, where's my book?
Oh. Folks, I hope you were not sick of me, because I'm about to make you real fucking sick of me. I might have to take September off just so you guys can stop hearing my voice.
River is claiming the crown of the wall dwellers.
My thing with the movie, I'm going to touch upon this briefly because this also is something I have to talk about with this book, is the movie is a C- 2010s action movie. It is definitively not the book, but it's a C- action movie on a Tuesday. Like, if it's on cable television, I'm not immediately switching the channel. But the thing about this here book is, again, it has been adapted 4 times, which means it is very hard for me, as somebody who did not come of age with this specific book, but came of age more with the characters, to think about this book in a vacuum, which made analyzing it for the first time and having like coherent critical thoughts about it very interesting, because part of me wanted to do the what's the difference, you know, lost in adaptation treatment of it.
God, no.
But
like we're gonna kind of do it, but
also I was thinking, like, it was also very hard to think about it in the echoing context of what Heroes does, what the rest of the series does, what even like the musical does. And the funniest thing about it, and I'm gonna start with this because I think it's the most cogent thought I have about this book so far, is Percy always sounds like me in my head. There are moments where he sounds like Walker, and there are occasional moments where he sounds like Logan or Chris McCarroll. That opening prologue is Chris McCarroll to a goddamn T, because that's basically the opening number of the musical. But Percy's internal monologue always sounds like me. Whereas Annabeth has a tendency to sound like Kristen or Leah. Kristen, who plays her in the musical, and Leah, who plays her in the show. Grover sounds like Arian or like
George Salazar.
Yeah, George Salazar. So, like, everybody in this book, to some extent, sounds like a version of the adaptation, except for Percy, who always sounds like me. And I think that is a testament to why this book holds up.
River, are there some tests we need to take you to get?
I'm already ADHD, motherfucker. I literally, right before, the reason I had this appointment in the afternoon is, motherfucker, I was getting my ADHD meds adjusted again.
There you go. Yeah, honestly, with that added context, my future with this franchise is going to be very interesting, River. But yeah, like I was saying, I missed the boat on this for the most part, but I always meant to read it. I even came close to finishing reading it back when I was still teaching, because we happened to have a copy in my classroom, one of my classroom's libraries. But obviously, you know, there's the whole teaching thing. That job was a temporary position anyway. And so, yeah, this was the perfect excuse to finally get me to read it. I'm going to have some takes.
This is going to be fun. All right. That fucking opening page, which we can all goddamn recite at this point.
Speak for yourself, but it is thoroughly charming.
Yeah, it's the only adaptation that doesn't do it is the movie, which is why the movie is the worst version. That's Sunday.
It's the perfect back of the book jacket line. Yeah. It's the perfect trailer line. It's the perfect hook for everything. You write that, and children are going to be hooked.
Yeah, Oh, absolutely. Like, I fully understand why this has caused so much love and respect. Like, Rick Riordan, your imagination is a lot of fun, and you're a funny guy. I get it. I get why this grabbed a whole generation.
That opening fucking page, icon and star. I will say, I love the goddamn chapter titles. He uses the gag chapter titles in every series except for Heroes, which I understand. Heroes has to pay more attention about whose POV you're running with, especially in the later books when they're bouncing between so many POVs. Understandable. I went to the Rick Riordan School of Chapter Titles. My generations of fanfic can be divided into two gens. The gen where I was taking more influence from Rick Riordan's chapter titles, and the gen where I was taking more influence from song lyrics, and they occasionally overlap.
I see it. I can see that happening for sure. But yeah, no, it's like,
I mean, you're not alone in the Rick Riordan School of Chapter Titles. I love when Jiran J. Zhao does them too.
Yeah. They're quintessentially the humor of these books. And they also play off really well about, like, this book especially gets you really into Percy. But the other fun thing is it gives you such a sense of who Percy is right out of the fucking gate. I love this sarcastic little asshole 12-year-old.
I love him, and this was one of those moments where I'm just like, I've talked about this before on the podcast. It was around when the MCU Spider-Man movies started coming out that I started realizing, oh god, you are a child, what are you doing? And I am, in fact, old enough to be Percy's mom at this point.
Oh no!
Incredible.
Yeah, we need to talk about the problematic aspects of the age gap between Poseidon and Percy's mom.
No.
If you see any suspicious men on the beach, especially if they are ginger, you should probably run.
Sure.
Ginger's only in the show.
No, he's ginger in the movie too, because he's playing the kid in the movie.
To me, the movie, when I try to recall it, is just it's black. It's a square of blankness. It is blue screen of death. Because I have not seen that movie since it was in theaters, and I try very hard to not remember it at all.
Oof.
I remember that there was a guy from Supernatural in there, but that's about
Jake Gable, very good casting for Luke. I have to give them credit for that.
I will talk about this when we do the movie, but there's literally I literally took a screenshot of the IMDb trivia page where it's like 5 billion names in blue links connecting to other IMDb pages that are like, all of these people have been in Supernatural.
Oh god, that's
Canada.
That's gonna be fun to talk about, but
yeah, book.
This
is what I mean when I say it's hard to talk about it in a vacuum. Is, you know, like
you said, at this point we have 3 adaptations of this book, which is wild in the span of a decade.
Yeah, so it just sort of spirals out. This book turns 20 next year.
This book is old enough to vote.
Yes.
And we know that it'll be voting blue!
Hey! Oh. Like, this book is thoroughly charming. Like, even though there are definitely moments where my inner 12-year-old was like, because I did not like most boys when I was 12. Which, that was around the time when I was starting to figure that out, wasn't I? Okay. But yeah, it's like, there are some aspects of Percy's internal dialogue, and I'm just like, no, that was unnecessarily mean. I realize you're a 12-year-old boy, and most 12-year-old boys are awful, but still.
It is also eminently readable. Like, I broke it down, because it's a 340 some odd page, 360 page book. And I was like, okay, I gotta get this read before we record. I'll read 100 pages a day every 2 days, and I'll get that done by the time we start with a day for buffering if I like fuck up. And that was easy. There are some books where I can't do shit like that. This was fucking nothing.
I did it in like 4 hours within the last 12.
I was doing the audiobook because, as you all know, I am stuck with a full-time job at this point. Please donate to the Patreon so maybe I could stop having to do that. And I will say, that is one thing I will say, this narrator left some things to be desired. Like, most of his voices were very samey, especially with Mrs. Dodds, when it's such a clear description of her sounding like a southern lady going, honey. Like, I could do better than that, and I'm not a professional. This book deserves a better audiobook narrator.
Was it at least above, if I'm being honest?
She didn't read the audiobook for If I'm Being Honest, remember?
Yeah, because y'all warned me against that, but from your description, yes, He was
But-
just kind of dull.
Yeah.
But that was the quickest way I was going to do that in between taking phone calls, basically. And it still didn't take away from the fact that, again, this is a thoroughly charming book. Like, Percy has a very strong voice, and I do think that is one of the things that just gets me into a story. Like, I'm sorry, your first chapter title being like, I vaporized my pre-algebra teacher, like...
I accidentally vaporized my
Yes.
pre-algebra teacher.
Yes, like, that's just neat. I just... Like, I will say, like, again, I get it. 12-year-old boy, your internal monologue's not going to be very nice, especially when you are, in fact, a troubled child. But it's like, do you have to keep describing all these girls as ugly? I realize they're being mean, but
8 out of 10 of them are monsters?
I'm talking about, like, Clarice and Nancy.
Well, so Clarice is kind of, or her art doesn't do her any justice, especially Vera. Vera's is kind of nicer to her, but the official art for a while fucking sucked. Thank you, Vera, for replacing all of the official art. We owe you our lives. We love when fan artists get so popular that Rick is just like, yeah, I will pay you to redo all my official art.
Honestly, like, I remember going to the press event and Rick was like, yeah, I wasn't really happy with the initial art that I got for Percy and Annabeth and everybody. And I'm like, interesting.
But yeah, I can tell you right now, if this had come to me when I was the appropriate age, I feel like that would have turned me off a little bit. But that's just me.
I mean, looking back, I think I kind of just accepted it because this is something I'm still kind of unlearning, is that, you know, we still have that problem of assigning physical appearance to morality.
Absolutely. But then again, you know what? I put up with the whole first chapter in the Turf Wizard Boys series that is horrifically fatphobic, so maybe I'm talking out of my ass.
When you start this, you're a kid. You don't understand that, and that's how they get ya.
Uh-huh, exactly. Maybe I would have been like, yeah, she's mean. I don't know. That is nitpicking. It did not take away from me enjoying this. And, like, I fucking love Chiron. I fucking love him. He sounds like a great teacher in spite of his flaws. Like, I did make a little joke in my notes. It's just like, wow, we're really gaslighting this kid? Really?
I mean, my Chiron note is, like, he'd been to her funeral, and then I'm like, he probably did. Like... First of all, picking the Met was a great choice as somebody who has been to the Met's Greek collection.
Yes.
Iconic choice.
I think part of it was, well, he might have been living in Texas at that point, but I think Rick Riordan did live in New York for a while.
It wouldn't surprise me.
And I partially know this because after he moved to Boston, he wrote a series set in Boston. Shout out to Magnus Chase. I never finished reading you. I hear that you are the problematicest baby Rick has ever birthed, but you are representing my city, and Loki is a Red Sox fan, which makes too much fucking sense.
Fair enough. And also, I gotta give credit to this chapter for just immediately introducing the idea of Kronos. Like, thanks to cultural osmosis and the sort of people I am friends with, of course, I already knew that Kronos was the big bad, but I just think that's really A+ foreshadowing. Even as somebody who already knew what was going down. Like, you're immediately introducing it, like, in the first chapter. It's good setup and payoff.
The monsters always smelling like sulfur is kind of an interesting detail. Put it in the monsters being semi-demon related and things of the underworld smelling like sulfur. I don't know where we got that culturally, but it's very funny. I think the thing that I was, like, rereading, at least the first part of this book, because it's, like, the most I took notes on. We, I think, always underestimate how fucking angry Percy is.
Oh, he's enraged, and it's such an ADHD mood.
Yeah,
I'm not officially diagnosed, but there's a good chance.
Yeah, like in book 1, where he, like most 12-year-olds, is like 2 seconds away from murder, or that's just me.
No, that's definitely a 12-year-old thing in general, and especially if you've had a hard life, and especially fucking Gabe. Gabe is worse than I thought, and Sally is even better than I had heard.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to keep my mouth shut with comparisons to the adaptation, but god damn, fucking Gabe. I mean, on the one hand, he does also kind of feed into that whole ugliness morality thing.
Yeah.
But also, like, you know this guy. You know this guy. You know what he looks like. You know the kind of shit he talks. You know exactly why he is the way he is, and it's just...
If you don't know him personally, somebody you love knows him, unfortunately.
The only other alternative is that if you don't know this person, you are this person, and I'm sorry, but you need to look at yourself and start making some major changes in your life, because otherwise, spoiler alert, you're gonna end up a garden statue.
Yes, God, the way Percy loves his mommy, and I'm sorry, she gets him free sample candies from her job. It's just, I really love her. I love her a lot.
It truly does sell, like, Poseidon being like, she's a queen among women.
Fuck yeah, she is.
It really sells the idea of, like, of course this is the woman who's gonna break a several decades long pact of a god. Like, of course a god who is not supposed to, you know, be with mortals or fall or have more children is going to take one look at this woman and go, I'll risk it! Like, me handshake Poseidon, bestie, I get it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, just a tangent for world building. How has Hermes not made a killing in divine prophylactics?
Well, so God.
I know, kids' book. We can't really talk about sex, except when we're bringing up how Annabeth came into being, because there was no sex involved.
Yeah.
Ace Athena stands. We still winning.
Oh, absolutely. It's very cool. When I first heard that was how, like, Athena's children came to be, I'm like, oh, that is so smart. I love that. Honestly, that's what I say about a lot of what this series does with all of these figures in Greek mythology. It's like every time I see how he modernizes, it's like, oh, that's so clever. I love that so much.
I actually remember, like, when my 5th grade teacher gave me this book as my reading assignment, I was reading the back cover and it said, the demigod daughter of Athena. I'm like, Athena doesn't have kids. Athena's not supposed to have kids. What are you talking about? And then, of course, Annabeth becomes my favorite character because...
That sounds about right.
Blonde, undiagnosed autism, bookworm, me, hi.
Yeah, as soon as you said it, I'm like, of course she's your favorite.
Luke Castellan.
Again, of course.
That doesn't mean I won't fight anybody who tries to shit on Leah. Okay?
We'll fight you.
Leah alone. I'll fight you and I will bite you.
Nice. Speaking of bite, I loved the little bit about the snake sneaking into Percy's bed when he was taking a nap.
Percy,
nice shout out to Hercules.
Story.
Nice Hercules moment.
Oh, Jazz. Oh. So, Jazz, I don't want to spoil the 3rd book.
Okay. The Minotaur revealed through the lightning strike is such a great image. Like, Rick actually has some decent horror chops. Like, Rick Riordan, consider going into middle grade horror sometime. I think you would kill it. Like, he's one of those rare writers where his comedy chops are great and his horror-ish chops are also really great. Like, you do feel some genuine fear for these kids, especially since, again, I am old enough to be their mother.
One more thing about this, like, beginning section prior to the reveal. The Fates fuck. They don't appear ever again, I don't think.
Oh, they do. They do. They appear in book 5.
That's actually another great example of the perfect blend of horror and comedy, because on the one hand, these giant fucking socks, on the other hand, that snip of the scissors is ominous as fuck.
Everybody who grew up with Hercules knows exactly what music they're hearing at that moment.
Yeah.
These scissors. The thread won't cut.
Oh, rad.
Haven't even talked about Grover yet.
Grover, my beloved.
Baby boy.
Baby boy.
Like, he's trying his best. He's just a goat boy trying his best.
Also, he should definitely be in therapy.
Oh, everyone in this fucking book series should be in fucking therapy.
I was gonna say, like, everybody in the Olympian family should be in therapy.
I need the Stray Gods dialogue auction to tell these gods to go to therapy.
Yes.
As I was gonna say, if Stray Gods is like the second answer to how you would adapt the Greek gods, then this is more in line with, like, this is the first answer you'd give, but it's done in such a way that it doesn't feel exhausting. It's just sort of fun and funky. And done with, like, enough of a creative verve that you're kind of like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, there's a lot of creativity in this series, and I really do respect it. Like, for example, when Percy does get to Camp Half-Blood and they introduce the whole ambrosia thing, I think it's neat that it just tastes like whatever tastes best to you. So, let's go. What would it taste like to you guys?
Probably like a lemon raspberry cheesecake.
Ooh, nice.
I've always, whenever I've written about it, it's always tasted like corner brownies, like edge corner brownies with frosting.
Ooh. I feel that.
They're also like kind of like a day old, so they're not like actively gooey, but they still have that like good like crunch vibe.
That is very specific. I love it. And it should be worth noting, like for Percy, it's the chocolate chip cookies mostly, but he does mention that it tastes like movie butter popcorn too. So
Yeah, I think that's the difference between the ambrosia and
versus
nectar.
the ambrosia.
oh, okay, I see.
The popcorn's ambrosia, the nectar tastes like cookies.
I wonder
Oh,
if the ambrosia tastes like popcorn for everybody, or if it's another Percy specific thing, because Percy doesn't really come back to popcorn at any point.
that is true. I love how that's what we're focusing on when during his utterly traumatic moment of thinking he's lost his mother to a bull man.
You drool when you sleep.
Yep. I will admit, like, I knew that Annabeth and Percy had a lot of bickering going on early on, but by the end of this book, even I was already like, okay, yeah, no, you kids absolutely growing up to belong together makes perfect sense.
They are an exception to my bicker kiss hatred.
They are, you fully understand what it means when Percy is going to get judo flipped in 8 books from now and met with an I missed you too.
Oh, you crazy kids.
You crazy kids. And Annabeth is a delight. Like, she's exactly the kind of annoying smarty pants that I was as a kid. Yeah, I think we all agree
Same
with
here.
that.
I fucking love that Rick Riordan did not forget that one of Dionysus's domains is madness.
Yeah.
Letting the visage slip just a little bit. And I'm like, oh, Rick, you didn't forget that Dionysus was a madness god.
Yep.
Or the dolphin. I love the
dolphin
hyperfixation on the dolphin thing.
Extra funny.
Also, the notion that prohibition was just Zeus getting really mad at Dionysus.
That was, again, that was clever.
I mean, it does explain why it didn't last very long.
Yeah.
Because, again, the Constitution will forever be this weird document that says 18th Amendment, no alcohol, 21st Amendment. Wait a minute, we were wrong, we go back.
We changed our mind.
Like, you think about all the ripple effects, like Al Capone and shit. God damn.
Like, again, the gods must be crazy.
I mean, yes, absolutely.
We don't use the C word to discuss the Lord of the Sky.
Fair enough. Dionysus is, like, I knew he was a cranky old man, but God, I did not realize just how cranky he was. Like, damn, dude, I get it, but...
Can you imagine if you were in an AA meeting that Dionysus was forced to attend?
Everybody would be immediately uncomfortable, I'm sure. But, yeah, Luke River.
Luke Castellan, my absolute beloved.
This is the part where River turns into Callie.
Go for it.
Well, more like Luke Castellan sits on the same bookshelf as Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah. He does!
Yeah, Sam! Yeah, Sam!
does,
Why are
Sam.
you yelling? Why are you gasping? You knew that!
I'm not gasping, there are some lines Luke crosses that Anakin doesn't cross, and there are sometimes lines Anakin crosses that Luke doesn't cross, okay?
We did say same bookshelf,
Why
not
I
same
say they're
hat.
not sitting in the same book, but they are sitting on the same shelf.
Yeah.
And I was getting deep into Star Wars the same time I was getting deep into Heroes of Olympus.
Oh, God.
Oh dear.
That's a combination.
I'm not saying that they didn't coexist in my brain. And also, like, as someone, like, if you had to pick a Greek god to be your godly parent, kid of Hermes. I used to think I was a kid of Athena, but I'm not smart enough. So, kid of Hermes, jack of all, master of none.
I see it.
Apollo.
And so there was something about like
if I'm picking from the Big 12, because I don't think I'm smart enough to be an Athena either.
Mm.
I'm too artsy.
So
and I hate studying.
Yeah, that put a pin in how Athena is interpreted in this goddamn series. Yeah. That's a later book question. But there is something, because you get it, because to some extent, y'all, Luke is kind of right.
Oh, yeah, like, literally him saying that Western civilization deserves to fall, I'm like, I mean... Like, that's
the whole concept of Western civilization is probably the worst thing Rick did to this series.
Second worst thing.
Third.
Third.
Wait,
Second is he opens the box that is the what the fuck was this urban fantasy world doing in World War II?
In the worst possible way. And the first one is the Confederate soldiers, right? Was that what you were thinking, River? Because that's what I'm thinking. That comes in book 2, but
I think the Confederate soldiers end up.
The Confederate soldiers thing is framed specifically as a punishment. It is their punishment for having lost the war.
Okay. Yeah, but how are they going to deal with that in the show, though?
They're probably going to have it be something like, I don't know, French people from the 7 Years' War.
Hopefully, because, yeah, no, we're not touching that with Leah, no. Anyway.
But anyway, so, you know, like, there is this, like, the reason, and I'll talk about this when we do the musical, the reason The Good Kid Reprise works is he's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
Should he have murdered an entire civilization? No, not necessarily. But he's kind of right. Like,
Luke Castellan.
I feel like
Eric
that's
Killmonger.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Less Anakin Skywalker, more Eric Killmonger, but...
they're all sitting on the same bookshelf.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason that I say the whole Western civilization was the worst thing is that I hate that I keep bringing up the Turf Wizard series, but it's kind of like what's-her-face saying, like, oh yes, there's only one wizard school for all of South America, and it's in the one country that speaks Portuguese, while the most of them speak Spanish.
Yeah.
So...
And I know in Heroes of Olympus we later make it even weirder by having the Roman camp in the other side of the country, and even more questions raised in the world building. Rick.
I mean, there's a reason why he decided he was going to do the whole Rick Riordan Presents thing, because he realized maybe I shouldn't be touching some of this.
We appreciate somebody stepping back and realizing when they've done an oopsie, but
yes.
You wrote what you wrote, buddy, and it has to stand there and be considered as part of your canon.
Fair enough. So the Western civilization thing, I am willing to bet, and not much money. I'm willing to bet 50 cents, that it was supposed to less be interpreted as West is best, and more in the, if the gods follow civilization, then realistically, you know, it would have gone from Greece, Renaissance Italy, England, and with the English, come to the States.
Yeah.
See, I think the problem isn't so much the Western part of it, it's the civilization part of it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Because we have all that loaded into the term civilization. Like,
right.
Even the word barbarian just means one who does not speak Greek.
Yeah. Which, fair enough, but I think for a middle school book who we're not going to argue the semantics of civilization with 12-year-olds.
Yeah, that's fair. And also we gotta remember where we were at that point.
This is a 20-year-old, this is a nearly 20-year-old book written for middle schoolers. I don't think we're quite arguing the semantics of civilization yet. I don't think I started we had to argue about that until like 9th grade.
Yeah.
No, it's just, you know, when you grow up, you start questioning things.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's almost like this isn't really for us anymore. We're not in the key demographic. It just so happens that you two have a lot of nostalgia for it, so of course you still have a lot of affection for it.
Also, one thing that none of the adaptations except for the musical get right, camp's population is supposed to be tiny.
Yeah. I think we can blame the Turf Wizard series for that, although technically the Turf Wizard series is not supposed to be that populated either. So
I also blame Aphrodite in universe.
Hey!
I just have to imagine Aphrodite is getting so much action as standards of beauty change so freaking fast now.
That would actually be really... I would love to see one of these, like, modern Greek mythology things, like, address that properly, because even Stray Gods didn't really. I was fully expecting them to, but...
Well, yeah. Well, so... I guess it kind of addresses how beauty standards change in the fact that, like, Aphrodite looks like that, and, like, she's picked who she picks, and, like, it more leans into the Greek idea of, like, love is not just physical, it is love of man, love of humanity.
Which this first book does not do at all.
No, but this first book, the only gods we meet is Ares, and he is biased.
But also
Annabeth is biased.
Yeah.
And the book also mentions that Athena allies with Hermes and Apollo as the two biggest cabins.
Yeah.
And that also makes me think, okay, so is this because Apollo has his fingers in quite a few pots as well? Or is it just to acknowledge that
And
music
after
has
all,
changed a ton? Wait,
I was going white guy and acoustic guitar at a party, and
no,
have
I
you
was
said
talking
no
about like
musician?
Apollo being a god of the sun and medicine and
True.
prophecy. Like, you have to imagine Apollo probably makes a killing with women at farmers markets who insist on selling you crystals to cleanse your aura.
Oh god, yeah. Yeah, you are right. Like, the Apollo and Hermes alliance almost does make sense in terms of the medicine side of things. And also, yeah, like, he had a lot of pots. Hermes invented language. Apollo's the god of poetry. Like, in spite of the fact, obviously, they have their issues, it does kind of make sense.
Well, the other thing is that, like, it's all the campers too. Like, all of the alliances made within the camper space, it's very much, it's a camp game. It's, I'll trade you doing dish duty if you can get your cabin to come onto our side.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'll take your stable cleaning duties if you take my dishes, and we can figure this out. Like, that is part of that entanglement, which is also very fun.
Which is even funnier when you find out what dish duty entails
Oh.
in book 2.
Oh,
Dish duty involves lava.
Oh no! Damn it! Okay, that's good to know. Also, speaking of Luke, that I hate prophecies line hurts because I do know his whole deal.
Also, the remark about I understand Luke's bitterness after getting the realization that nobody has met their godly parent.
Yeah, because
I mean, I think
they make
also,
good foils, he and Percy.
I do have to think that Luke becomes sort of a power word age in his own right.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, like, we run from millennial to Zillennial to Gen Z, but we're all growing up with this realization of, oh, we're fucked. And it's not our fault, but now we have to fucking do it.
And we're stuck with authority figures that are indifferent at best.
Also, this book comes out in 2005, and the series is perpetual now, even though this first book is very
oh my
dated
god, the
2005.
moment when Gabe is being interviewed by Barbara Walters.
Right?
Hilary Duff's so yesterday.
I was shooketh. Okay, Hilary Duff was a formative crush, you guys. So I was just like, wait, that's almost weirder than Poker Face popping up in the movie.
But yeah, these books continue to exist and to live in the perpetual now, but also this first book is very 2005.
I loved the magic drinking glasses. I think that's neat, especially as somebody who has a variety of tastes when it comes to her just for fun beverages. All of the boba. There'd be so much boba. Also Houdini?
I mean, that's fun. That falls under the Star Trek gag.
Yeah.
Same with, like, George Washington being a son of Athena. That
makes a weird amount of sense to me, honestly.
Oh my god, imagine the Washington family being like, I say, where did this baby come from? Because we know how Athena kids show up.
Yeah, it'd be so funny. It'd be so funny. Also, the sword being named Riptide, that just kind of fucks. That's amazing.
I love Riptide. Riptide is one of my favorite fictional weapons. It and Backbiter are both one of my favorite fictional weapons.
There's such great creativity here, and I love the idea of a pen that turns into a sword.
It is a cappy pen, not a clicky pen.
Yes, and also talk about the pen is mightier than the sword, right? I do find it kind of funny that Annabeth is just like, I mean, we're just kind of meant to be at each other's throats because of our parents, and I'm glad that clearly she kind of figures out, wait a minute, that's kind of dumb. We should be nicer to each other. Like, she still teases him a lot. Like, I mean, they literally end with Seaweed Brain and Wise Girl, but, like, they're clearly much more friendly. And again, it's like, okay, I buy the fact that in 5 years you're going to be madly in love. Just your typical summer camp send-off by your typical centaur. Again, like, this book is just really funny.
A part of me almost believes that this is Percy, like, recounting his experiences by unpacking it in therapy.
I like that idea a lot.
I think it's one of the, like, offshoot books that it's, like, remarked that, oh yeah, no, Rick Riordan is the scribe.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot.
I think it's an acknowledgement he's, like, deemed, like, the scribe of Camp Half-Blood.
I like that. That's really cute. I like that idea. Also, I will say, if there's one thing I gotta say, the info dumps do get a little tiresome in the first part of it. I get it. I think that's just part of the fact that obviously I'm not the key demographic here. But like that info dumps could have been integrated a little bit better. But again, it was his first book. I'm not gonna hold it against him too much. But
as someone who remembers being a Greek myth kid, I liked it when I got to recognize the cues before they came and figure them out that way.
Fair.
And then there were some that I wouldn't recognize, and I'd be like, oh.
Well, it's not even that. Not even like the explanations of the Greek mythology. It's just like the explanation of how it's translated into this particular universe. Like just some of them kind of just explaining this, just kind of stopping everything to be like, this is how this works, and this is how that works. And I'm like, it could have been integrated a little better.
I have a question.
Is it time to talk Auntie-M?
It's time to talk Auntie-M.
In regards to Medusa, and I believe we have to talk about the Orientalism of it all.
Oh, yes, we do!
If I had a nickel for every time we had to talk about the Orientalism of it all with Medusa, I'd have 2 nickels.
Why?
I don't know if you listened to the same audiobook that I listened to way, way back in like 5th grade, because
I think there's only ever been one, which is crazy in my humble opinion. It feels like this should have a full cast version by now.
It was at a time when schools were trying to be very cool about, hey, check out this little play-away audiobook you can wear on a lanyard around your neck. But I don't know if it's the Orientalism of it all. I know that the Romani are an Indo-Aryan group, but I've never been fully clear on like where they count in terms of it. But the narrator was using that accent for Auntie-M.
Something like that, or like, trying to do a vaguely Middle Eastern thing as Percy described it. I'm like, oh no! Uncle Rick, why? But we'll get to that. Let's get to some nice things first.
For the audience's sake, if it's been a minute since you've read the book, I had the book in front of me, and I can read how Percy describes her.
Please go ahead.
All right. Then the door creaked open, and standing in front of us was a tall Middle Eastern woman. At least I assume she was Middle Eastern because she wore a long black gown that covered everything but her hands, and her head was completely veiled. Her eyes glinted behind a curtain of black gauze, but that was about all I could make out. Her coffee-colored hands looked old but well manicured and elegant, so I imagine she was a grandmother who had once been a very beautiful lady. Her accent sounded vaguely Middle Eastern, too. And then she said, children, it's too late to be out all alone. Where are your parents?
Why? Why?
On the one hand, Percy is a New Yorker post 9/11.
I know.
A very baby New Yorker post 9/11.
Yeah.
Internal biases are a hell of a drug.
Yeah, I know the actual reasons. It's just like, again, why isn't the 2 episodes in a row we gotta deal with Orientalism of it all Medusas? Again, I'm aware that how people see Medusa now is mostly based off of Ovid. It's not necessarily quote-unquote canon, but then what the fuck is with Greek mythology? But just, Also, Circus Caravan. Percy, please.
If you're picking an explanation out of your ass.
Annabeth's out of line, but she was right. But
Percy rolled a nat 1 on deception.
He really did, bless him.
So, the Orientalism of it all with Medusa, I think it gets a mild stamp of it could be worse.
Oh, it could absolutely be worse. It could always be worse. Although it is weird that this keeps happening to Medusa. Is it just because of the snake thing? Because that's weird.
I think in this case, it's supposed to be a shorthand for she is completely covered. You're not supposed to know who she is until Percy does the stupid thing of, I'm an idiot. What do you mean I didn't recognize Auntie-M Medusa?
Yeah, I will say I just realized that whole thing was a vaguely Hansel and Gretel scenario, and as someone who's technically played both, that is a weird coincidence. Editor Jasmine here. Medusa wanted to say her piece. Please do not equate me with her. Excuse me, you think you're better than me? That is not a high bar, Anne-Marie. Girls, please. I can't deal with this right now. Please let me finish this episode.
Geographically speaking, if I'm remembering the journey that mythological Perseus took, Medusa was hunkered down in, like, Turkey or wherever. Yeah. And let's not discount, ancient Greeks were racist as fuck, too.
Yes,
like,
they were.
Look at any treatment of Medea.
Yeah.
It's purely based on her being a foreigner, so
I did not realize she was based in Turkey, so that does help things, I guess.
To a level, this could be a sins of the father thing,
Yeah.
but Rick, that's not how you're supposed to work with sins of the father.
Yeah.
At least she's not completely like half snake, as some would be.
See, I'm not against that depiction, although combined with this, it would have sucked. Yes.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
at least it's not that.
Yeah. Like I can rock with Naga Medusa, just not here. I mean, that is basically what they did in that book that Shami and I read, which unfortunately wasn't terribly well written, but it had a good idea.
Love that.
I will say, as much as I kind of made fun of the fact that this is such a blatant Hansel and Gretel kind of send off with Medusa, I do kind of love it. I think it's a neat idea. It's a formula, but it bloody works.
With best wishes, Percy Jackson. I am impertinent.
I was gonna say that. It's just, oh, Percy, you snarky little bastard. I love you.
That is one of the moments where he sounds like Walker.
He is so lucky he did not get smote for that.
Oh, yeah.
I like to think it showed up on Olympus and they like kind of like someone like does like maybe an attendant, like a nymph gets fucking gets stoned, and Zeus wants to fly into a rage. And I don't know if Poseidon is on, like, because Poseidon and Zeus can't be in the same room at the moment, but I like to get the sense that if they're watching it on, like, Hephaestus TV, which I think connects all the gods, I like to think that Poseidon is, like, sitting in his throne room in under the water, and it's just, if he's not in the throne room, he is fully cackling. If he is in the throne room, he is hiding it behind his face. He's like, that's my boy!
I would hope he's not cackling given his history with Medusa, but...
Yeah!
I mean... There is a thin level of, like, that's my boy.
Oh, there's definitely a level of that's my boy, but there's also, oh god, that's my boy.
Can we talk about the poodle?
We most certainly can talk about the poodle. Lots of good boys and lots of good doggos.
I maintain that poodle was sent by Artemis. It was either sent by Artemis or it was sent by Pan, because otherwise there was just a random pink poodle wandering around New Jersey or wherever. And I get that that's kind of sporadic and everything,
Lost
but
in
like,
the woods somewhere in
we're in New Jersey and we're never gonna make it to LA.
Hey!
Once again, in the musical, it's say sorry to the squirrel, Percy.
I've actually never gone through the musical.
I haven't gone through all of it either, because honestly, I'll get into it when we actually cover it, but I'll admit a lot of the lyrics are kind of meh to me, but there are some gems. There are some gems I have heard. But anyway.
I don't want to die in the Garden State.
Who does?
Very New Yorker line of Percy.
Yes. And that was very New Yorker for me. Anyway. But yes, love that. Lots of good doggos in this book.
Cerberus, my beloved.
Cerberus. Play with him, Hades!
Percy, play with your dog sometime, you dipshit!
There are actually some more obscure Greek figures in this book, and I commend Riordan for that. Fucking loved the scene with Echidna.
Echidna feels like an early pull. She is the one villain where I'm like, you're gonna throw her against your 12-year-old and not wait until he's like, I guess.
As the mother of monsters, yeah, we could have built her up a bit more, but also it was a lot of fun, so I'm not too mad about it.
I kind of got the notion that this was like a little baby chimera who needed training, like this chimera had recently respawned.
She was talking to him like he was a little kid.
Because if we're going with what's been established in canon, that monsters reform slowly, like, maybe this is the first time Chimera's coming back since fighting Bellerophon, and, you know, Chimera needs mommy to tell him how to fight.
Yeah, I can see it.
Love the fact that the Mississippi River does not actually go under the arch, but we do have to do whoopsies.
And that actually does bring me back to, I loved how this book revealed he was the son of Poseidon. But with that said, again, I'll talk more about this on Sunday. I feel like we could have had a little more foreshadowing on that, and that is one thing I will give the movie credit for. Anyway.
There is planting, though. Like, not he's training with Luke, and he just dunks the water on his head.
Well, that. I meant before Camp Half-Blood. That's what I meant. There's not really as much.
The only pre-camp mention you get is the constant summers at Montauk.
Yeah, and that could be anything, let's be real.
That is, I get alone time with my mother, and I don't have to deal with my shit-ass stepfather.
Yeah, exactly, and that's understandable. Oh, love how they use the power of the rainbow and Iris to send messages. That was a really cool concept in here. I thought that was really cool. Iris doesn't get enough attention. And I'm sorry, as a queer who loves Greek mythology, we should give Iris more love.
Iris does pop up in the later
This
books.
is purely a rainbow thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, obviously.
Iris does pop up in the later books. She pops up in Son of Neptune, I believe.
Ooh.
She's a hippie and she runs
Of course
a
she is.
wellness booth.
That makes sense.
She also appears in Chalice of the Gods because they have to get help from her to find the god they're looking for. And she likes WandaVision. She wants to watch WandaVision with one of her kids. Because one of her kids, they're like a monochrome outfit and they shoot photography in black and white. And their mom like wants to bond with them in the hopes of getting color into their life.
Brand integration, a hell of a drug.
Yes, but also that's cute. I'm sorry, I'm not going to fault them for that. But yeah, it's also just a really cool way to have them like send messages like, yeah, we're just going to spray some water and make a rainbow.
Yeah.
That's just clever. That's a cool concept.
And it also splits the duties of Messenger Hermes versus Messenger Iris.
I was going to ask, do they ever, is it ever addressed that they like I always thought, oh my god, did they ever argue over who's the better messenger god? I wonder.
So
I doubt it's addressed here, but
I don't think they meet in book, but it's implied that Hermes is more like UPS or like the postal service,
right?
Where Iris is more of a like instantaneous. You need to get a message quick.
So she'd love instant messaging, basically.
I fully anticipate that down the line, since it looks like they're keeping the whole Half-Bloods can't use cell phones thing, I fully expect all the Half-Bloods eventually to have like a crystal that they use to project prisms.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's how they do it in the show.
Go full Dimension 20 fantasy high. That is how they did it in the show.
Oh, that's neat. I like that.
Yeah.
Finding out about Grover's whole mission to try to find Pan. First off, oof, as, you know, almost 20 years later, fucking oof. But also, I feel like knowing what happened to Grover's dad makes his part of the campfire song a little callous. We'll talk more about that when we cover it.
That's the musical.
Aries Loving America tracks almost too well.
Aries,
especially for 05.
If anything, it only gets worse.
If anything, I question how Aries has time to be in America. You would think he'd be tearing it up in all the places that America is making life terrible.
I mean, that is quite literally how Frank came about. Like, Frank's mom is Canadian Army.
Oh.
I think that's implied that they met overseas.
Oh, fuck.
Aries just the worst.
He really is. Like, he is just a grade A asshole. His description, again, one of those things that made me go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Very clever, Rick. But also the way you're talking about Aphrodite and Hephaestus is really gross. Fuck the early aughties, honestly.
I mean, we're not supposed to like him, so...
Well, no, it's not just Aries. Like, it's just kind of how they're all generally talking about Aphrodite and Hephaestus, especially Annabeth.
Well, Annabeth is a tiny 12-year-old demi-romantic who hasn't realized this about herself yet. Annabeth also has streaks of trying to get over her own internalized M-logginess.
Yeah.
Especially baby Annabeth, and going up until meeting Rachel has that jealousy streak. And so it's planted enough.
I mean, her mother is the original N-Log, let's be real. For listeners who somehow don't know, that's Not Like Other Girls. Athena was the original Not Like Other Girls. But also Waterworld, that, again, great action set piece.
I love that sequence so much, and it hurts me that we have not seen it realized as it is in the show. Partially because I really love the spiders bit. Not just because that was another thing where I related to Annabeth of like, yeah, spiders terrify me. Do not like it. But it was also a thing of like, that was a moment of vulnerability for Annabeth.
Yeah.
And a moment when her and Percy having a moment of vulnerability and they trust each other. I really like that moment. And so I'm disappointed that it hasn't been realized on a visual medium.
That's very fair.
I mean, I think it has been in a graphic novel.
Yes, there is a graphic novel. I did want to kind of get to that to see if maybe it was there, but haven't found out yet. I'll borrow it from Hoopla at some point. Also, hey, Arachne shout out. Speaking of women wronged by Athena, do not get at me about it, River. I know we've discussed this before.
Heroes of Olympus, babe.
Heroes of
also-
Olympus.
Really great action sequence, and it does kind of help endear you more to Annabeth and Percy's dynamic, I feel like.
I love those two fuckos so much.
Like, I mean, she shared half an Oreo with him. This is true love.
Okay, but when you say you're sharing half an Oreo with someone, does that mean you've distributed the cream equitably?
I don't know.
If anybody could distribute the cream equitably, I would
she
think
would have
it's
given
Annabeth
him
Chase.
just the cookie to be petty. Who are you kidding?
Yeah, but also she could have snapped it in half.
Very hard to snap an Oreo in half.
I know. Man, fuck 90% of the adult and authority figures in these kids' lives. I mean, that doesn't even have to be for a specific moment. That's just the general vibe of this series. Centaur in a prom dress. I'm intrigued. That was like one of the beads. I'm just guessing that's just a noodle
It's a
incident
noodle
joke.
incident.
Absolutely a noodle incident.
Most of the I think Annabeth's this series beads are noodle incidents.
Fair enough. Oh, I just know I'll fight next to you. You know, if war broke out, like, oh, god damn it. Good job, Uncle Rick. I was skeptical, I'll admit, but okay. But yeah, let's just scream about the poor animals.
Yes, please
The
scream about the
babies!
creatures.
That was, oof. That was horrific.
Shout out to planting the talking to horses.
I know, right? That was really, I like, as soon as I realized, oh, of course he could talk to zebras. Like, people don't talk much about the horse part of Poseidon. Also, just the implications of the zebra calling him Lord and bowing. Do horses have religion too? Do horses worship Poseidon?
I mean, Dad?
Oh, it makes a certain sense, but also I'm like, oh my god, that kind of breaks my brain, the idea of horses having a religion.
Religion. Horse religion.
I mean, the way this book handles the Greek gods as religion is a little bit... Because
Rick's apologized for it since then.
Yeah, fair.
yeah, well, no, I'm not like trying to say it's a problem. It's just it's not nailed down super well. Like, we do have things like the offering of sacrifices, but
Right.
at the same time, you get the idea of these gods as like embodiments of metaphysical concepts. I don't know that Rick ever fully found the middle ground for it that well.
I mean, it's a
at least in
delicate
this series.
balance.
Here, it's more like paying respect to your dead relatives.
Kinda. Anyway, Vegas?
Vegas.
The Lotus Eater scene is even more terrifying than I thought. I didn't realize you had people trapped in there for decades. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Editor Jasmine here. I am once again Boo Boo the Fool. In my defense, it had been a very, very long time since I had watched the film version of this story. As it turns out, yes, they do address the kids being stuck there for decades. But I think that is more of a commentary of just how much it gets bogged down by the poker face of it all. You'll hear more about this next week. Also, I loved the gag where Annabeth handed the cab driver the card from the casino, and it's an infinity symbol. Did you just make sure that man was set for life? Bless.
Did they ever mention, do they still have those cards?
I don't think so.
So if they left those cards in that cab driver's cab,
Congratulations.
he's triple set for life.
Yeah, congratulations to him. May it happen to us, right? Oh, Annabeth knows and is super in denial. I feel like in that cab she realized, oh no.
Yeah.
But no.
If anyone is going to figure it out, it's motherfucking Annabeth Chase.
Of course.
Which is why we have to take Annabeth out of the equation as much as possible.
Yeah, because she's too smart. She's too smart. The story wouldn't happen. You have evil thoughts for a goat. I mean, the devil is often depicted as one, Percy.
Put a pin in the whole satyr depiction. I got a lot of
sure.
thoughts about the satyr depiction. Mostly in regards to the movie, because I got thoughts about that too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Put a pin in the satyr description. A knitting
Also-
needle even.
Oh, I lost my mind over the Mako shark. I'm like, Fred Shark!
Friend shark.
Hell yes,
Percy-
Percy, be Aquaman!
Percy's friendship with sea animals, chef's kiss. Also, so the Nereids. I have one question about the Nereids.
Yes?
Do they all look like Sally because it's Percy and they were like, we need to look like something that's familiar to him so that he'll listen to us? Or,
Are there implications here?
yeah!
I would prefer that there not be implications because remember, Amphitrite is one of the Nereids.
Yeah.
And she and Poseidon do not have the best relationship. She's not like on Hera's level or anything.
Right.
But she's not thrilled that her husband is boning other women. So it would kind of be...
It'd be weird.
Actually, that might make things even super more intense if, like, Sally does resemble her and Percy is, like, canonically Poseidon's favorite son, and I'm gonna go stare at a wall for a little bit.
While you do that, if the movie had included this friendly shark, it might have offset the Jaws effect. Criminal to not. You've got blood and fin soup on your hands, Columbus. Also, kudos to Percy for knowing his sharks.
Well, of course Percy does.
And Shark and Seahorse playing tag. Stop, it's so cute.
The sea animal stuff gets cuter. They go to an aquarium in Georgia in Son of Neptune, and it's very silly.
Oh, I'm excited. Listen, I'm a sucker for an aquarium. I love aquariums.
This is just giving you fuel for wondering how they're gonna make this into a Disney World attraction, isn't it?
Absolutely. Please give me a Waterworld ride.
Honestly, if they make a whole Percy Jackson park, I will die happy.
Give me Camp Half-Blood. I want Camp so badly.
I know you do.
I have a lot of thoughts about DOA records.
I also do have
We're
thoughts
just
on
gonna
Krusty.
skip over Procrustes?
Yes.
Yeah, we gotta talk. I'm sorry.
Percy full-on beheaded a man.
He sure did. And also, the lava lamp waterbed sounds like it rocks. I'm sorry. There was a time when I
always wanted to try a waterbed.
There was a time when I was a child I wanted a waterbed. So, and also, again, this is a case of taking a lesser-known Greek figure and making him a genuine threat. Like, God, Riordan did his homework, and I actually really applaud him for it. But yes, now we can do DOA records unless someone has more to say on Krusty.
Can't get away, because you're DOA!
I'm always fascinated by afterlife as bureaucracy, which of course peaked with The Good Place.
No! It peaked with Dead Like Me!
Ooh. Ooh, we're gonna have to...
Agree to disagree, but... Just the notion that you pay your passage to the underworld on your credit card or your last cable bill, it now has me wondering, like, what is my death going to show up as? Like, if I died right now, would it just be another, like, surcharge because I made a fucking microtransaction on a mobile game?
Oh, God. Ugh. Student loan payment, probably.
Oh, God.
But yeah, no, fucking, I love Charon. Fucking love that little ferryman.
Honestly, Charon had more energy of Disney Hades than Hades did.
He kinda did, yeah. I wouldn't have thought of that, but you're right.
You can imagine him having that kind of fast-talking vibe that he's selling you a used car, you know?
Stay the fuck away, James Woods.
I seldom cahoot.
Hey, I wasn't naming names.
I seldom cahoot. No, Charon in my head, first of all, Percy is right. No one should walk in LA. Percy as the manic New Yorker taking one foot into LA.
Have walked in LA, would not recommend. I did it in wedges.
I've also walked in LA. It's a bad idea.
Good to know. I've not.
Walking in LA is a mistake. The song is right. No one should walk in LA. Like Percy being like, yeah, New York makes sense. It's a grid system, motherfucker.
I was waiting for that.
Versus LA being a sprawled out, chaotic nonsense city. Absolutely tracks. 12 out of 10. The correct answer. Also, hilarious that they have to go on this whole like cross-country odyssey to go to the underworld because in the other novels, the back door's in Central Park.
Are you fucking kidding me?
The Orpheus used is brought up in a one-off book with Nico, Thalia, and Percy going on a quest to the underworld, and the back door's in Central Park.
That's how they introduced Persephone.
I hope Percy had a snarky remark for that.
It's been a while since I read that short story, and I don't remember if I own the book it's in. Well, the thing is that it's implied that the only reason they have access to it is because Nico is with them. Because it's a cousin's bonding adventure. It's Nico, Thalia, and Percy.
Fair enough, okay.
And, like, the only reason they have access to it is because Nico's with them, and Nico has access to the underworld at basically anywhere.
Of course.
But it's specifically listed as the Orpheus door, or the Orphic door.
I have so many questions. I have so many questions, then. Unless this door moves.
But yeah, the going to LA and going down the elevator and then turning it into a boat. That's fun as hell. I love the Styx being flooded with lost dreams.
Right? Oof.
fucking incredible.
I love metaphysical rivers.
Yeah.
It's
And I love doggos.
Cerberus!
Good pupper.
I do love the idea that Cerberus is a giant Rottweiler.
Oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. Rottweilers get a bad rep and are often portrayed as demon dogs, so this just perfectly tracks.
It's very funny.
I think they retained it as a Rottweiler for the TV show, but if Rick Riordan had written these books today, you know Cerberus would be a Pibble.
Of course, because that's the doggy that gets the worst rap now. But no, Annabeth taming Cerberus and him wanting her to stay and play with him was very sweet. Like, damn it, Hades, play with your dog!
Play with your dog, give your boatman a raise.
Yes.
Percy introduces unionizing to the underworld.
And he probably is more successful than Orpheus is.
So the thing about Charon is in all of the adaptations, I have parents with eclectic music tastes, but more importantly, I have a Canadian father, which means I know more than one Krista Berg song in my life. And the Krista Berg song I heard the most as a child is one called The Ferryman. The basic pitch is you're not supposed to pay him until he gets you to the other side. Like, the course of that song is like, don't pay the ferryman, don't fix a price, don't pay the ferryman until he gets you to the other side. With the basic pitch of the song being that he's going to screw you over. So I always get really nervous in these stories when they pay Charon up front.
That's fair. Okay, that's fair.
But then you'd be stuck in an eternal loop of, well, take me across the river and I'll pay you. Pay me and I'll take you across the river.
Yeah, that is also true. I mean, look at all the things in the waiting
half
room.
up front, half when the job is done, you know?
Oh, like with art commissions. You know what? That makes sense.
But
Fair
like,
enough.
That is technically what they did.
No. Well,
It
kind of.
wasn't. Not in this case. I don't
But
think.
that's
Was it?
Insofar it's like, we'll be coming back, and Charon's like, lol, no.
But like, that's the sort of like knee quirk I have when I read these is I'm like, oh yeah, Charon. Please don't pay him too much so he gets you back all right. I do love Hades. Hades is fun. I love a Hades that is just an exhausted bureaucrat.
By all accounts, that is what he is.
He's like, why on earth would I want a fucking war? I am already overflowing.
Yeah, there are more dead people than there are alive people. He got the most work.
Also, love the Helm of Darkness. I love the lightning bolt. Fucks.
Yes.
I love the lightning bolt as a weapon so much.
It's great. Also, I love Percy's description, where most people go.
Yeah.
Like it's just, imagine a concert that everyone's waiting for. Yes.
But it's probably not a Taylor Swift concert.
Hey, you know what? I resisted bringing up Who's Afraid of Little Old Me when we were talking about the animals, Sam. Why did you have to open the Taylor jar?
Look, I'm just saying, I think that waiting eternally for a Taylor Swift concert to start would probably be closer to hell, because Swifties are unhinged.
Yeah.
We've kind of skipped over the Tartarus thing.
We
though,
skipped
didn't
over Kronos, his dreams, the Tartarus thing.
I was going to bring up the Kronos thing near the end, because like we've been talking a little bit about
We've
it.
already spoiled it!
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah,
We've
like
spoiled it like half a dozen times.
we have, yes, but I figured we would bring it up when Percy realizes it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's go. Percy has prophetic dreams, and it's a problem.
Well, that's implied, I think in the later books that's outright stated, that is the demigod existence, is you get either prophecy dreams or just fuck up weird dreams.
And they get progressively creepier, and then we get to the nightmare pit, and God, I just remember how fucking creepy that was. Like, the idea of a dark, bottomless hole singing creepily at you.
No, thank you.
I do love Thalia's brief appearance in Dream.
Yes.
We love Thalia showing up and being like, come on, dude, someone has to go.
Anyway, Kronos, yeah. Kronos is the big bad, and even Ares is scared of him. That's not great. Even Ares is not immune to Kronos' influence.
I mean, he is grandpa.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
I actually don't think we get a full visualization of Kronos, because he's in the sarcophagus putting himself together, and then he transfers himself to Luke.
Yeah. Which, oof.
Ares, please give me my beach fight.
The beach fight's pretty great.
The beach fight's so rad, especially because, like, God, I love that thing of Annabeth giving Percy the necklace, and it's a huge, tender moment, and then Grover's like, here's a tin can.
It means a lot to Grover, okay?
You think the god of war is afraid of a little water? How about a lot of it?
Also, Percy trolling Gabe afterwards, like, yeah, he's gonna give everybody in LA a free appliance.
We forgot to talk about terrorist Percy!
Yeah.
It's so bloody.
We talked a little bit about the Barbara Walters of it all, but yeah, it's like he is being portrayed as a potential terrorist / cult member. Either way, be portrayed very badly in the media up until everything is returned, in which case it's like, no, he was kidnapped by this big biker dude.
Fucking, my favorite thing is, in terms of the, like, criminal Percy, one of the, like, subtler things that is really interesting is when the kids mention they pick up money, because that's one of those things that is, like, really easy to overlook in urban fantasy stuff like this. It's like, where the fuck are they getting all the money? Because, like, you know, or usually they're, like, using exclusively, you know, transportation methods native to the other world, so they would be paying an otherworld currency. Whereas this one, it's like, no, there are two different forms of currency, and you need both of them.
Again, very clever.
And so there are always, like, offhanded mentions of, like, oh, when they're in Medusa's, they raid her cash register, so they have more drachma. Or, you know, when they're...
And I'm low-key weeping thinking of buying 3 Amtrak tickets from New Jersey to Denver for $200.
Yeah.
Inflation.
Or, you know, they pick up the cash cards from... Ares has them arranged so they get from Denver to Vegas, and then in Vegas they pick up the cash cards, and
then in LA, they pass the hat around.
Yeah.
Because Percy bribed everybody with free appliances.
Yeah. And so, like, that's one of those, like, minor details that it's very easy to, like, it's gonna be the first thing that disconnects if you're not already enjoying an urban like, in an urban fantasy novel, you're enjoying it, it doesn't bring it up, you're like, it's glossed over, and you don't even mind it. If you're not enjoying an urban fantasy, it is the first detail you notice, where you're like, how the fuck are they paying for everything?
Imagine meeting your dad for the first time and basically get summed up as, thanks for doing me a solid. Sorry I couldn't keep it in my pants and you exist.
I mean, you know what? Nowadays where everybody's just like, we didn't ask to live in this horrible world. As somebody who is not planning on bringing children into this world, I kind of get it.
So... I will write a dissertation, probably in the TV show episode, about the evolving dynamic between Percy and Poseidon over the course of both the books and the adaptations. Because in this one, I think Percy's too understanding. This first book, Percy, like, cops to the fact that he's like, I don't think I want him to hug me, because I think that would be weird, but I am kind of touched that he seems to like me. And I'm sorry, that's too understanding for a 12-year-old.
We could attribute it to, like, first book growing pains, and, like, Rick couldn't not write this scene, but I think he didn't know how to handle it either, and he had a bigger issue to address, so...
Yeah.
This is Percy compartmentalizing.
You get it out of the way fast enough. We'll have the awkward but somehow understanding meeting with Poseidon. We'll go to Sally so we can fulfill that line of the prophecy, and also... give Gabe what he deserves.
And you know, as someone who's big on the whole idea of Medusa kind of being a protector of abused women, it does kind of fuck, even if that's not what obviously this version of things sees it as. But I'll pretend that it's meaningful in that way because it makes me feel better about how she was portrayed in this book. And she gets to start her life again from it. It's like, atta girl, Sally.
I'm like, oh my god, NYU though.
Oof.
There go my student loans screaming faintly in the background.
Sally Jackson, the queen of women that you are.
And you know, I like how it tricks you into thinking we're getting to a happy ending where, you know, things are kind of winding down and he's just having a good time at camp.
He's got this niggling sense in the back of his brain. He's like, there's still a line to go.
And then then Luke comes in with a steel scorpion.
A steel broadsword.
Yeah.
God, I love Backbiter. I love Backbiter so much.
That's a sword for bisexuals. It cuts both ways.
Oh.
Literally. I love Backbiter. Yeah, as much as I love Luke, this is the weakest of Luke's villain... Well, second weakest of Luke's villain turns.
It's just like, why did you wait all summer to do this, Luke?
I think it's partially because he had to see if Percy came back alive, and partially because
You have to wait for the smallest amount of witnesses.
that too. Everyone's
also-
Everybody's moving out of camp that day. Percy's isolated.
Yeah.
He's not hanging around everybody else.
You don't know
You
if
can
he's
get that
staying here or
one-on-one
going
time.
home.
And, you know, I'm sure he was trying to see, does he know? Does he know? Does he know? Okay,
Yeah.
you know. But it's like, ugh. Again.
Warned you, betrayed by a friend.
Yep. And again, you're not wrong, Luke. You're just an asshole.
Yeah. We'll probably save most of my thoughts about this scene for the show, because I think the show does a better job with it. I don't think Rick ever completely sorts out how he feels about Luke, which means that Luke gets kind of messy
Right.
the longer we go on. At least there are moments. There are flashes and moments, I think. But I think in this first book, he's like doing the whole over-the-top villain thing. But as the books go on, you get flashes and instances. And I think this is something they're going to touch on in the show, because they are not limited to Percy's perspective, which is another thing that I think kind of hampers this moment a little bit. Is being stuck in Percy's head. There are very few moments like that. There are like a handful where I'm like, why? I would love to not be stuck in Percy's head at the moment. You know, for the sake of this first novel. Again, it is very hard to think about this book in a vacuum. All of my thoughts are kind of entangled.
I want to advocate thinking about this book in terms of a vacuum to the best of things. Luke got groomed.
Yeah.
Luke got groomed.
100%.
He got fed on at a point of vulnerability.
Yeah.
With, you know, Luke is not special in that every demigod with a father has daddy issues. Luke specifically got targeted at a moment when he was super isolated and super emotionally volatile. And like you've said, River, Luke is not wrong for these feelings.
Yeah.
But just like how I'm very worried every time I hear my little brother is listening to Joe Rogan podcasts, I lost the thread, because now all I can think of is Kronos as Joe Rogan. Which is both hilarious and horrifying to imagine.
I think Kronos is Jordan Peterson, if we're being...
That's even... None of this is good.
None of this is good. No, I totally get that angle. And I think that if they're smart, that's the angle they're going to play up.
Yeah.
Like, possibly some horseshoe theory in there. I don't know.
Could be interesting if they do that.
But yeah, so he just sort of kind of becomes cartoony in these last few moments. And I think that's my big hang up, is that the dialogue gets a little villain monologue-y.
That's fair.
I mean, when you have somebody pinned down with a deadly pit scorpion...
That was crazy.
I guess I can excuse it under the idea that it's not Percy Luke is talking to at this point. This is Luke using Percy as a vessel for his dad and for every other Olympian.
Oh, yeah. Goddamn, Percy, you are ballsy. I understand you deciding to stay with your mom, because obviously, but also ballsy after all of this.
I mean,
that's his whole thing. I know.
Yeah. I think he was kind of waiting on Annabeth's decision, because again, Percy's sole thing is he is incredibly lonely. And his options are stay in camp with Clarice without backup, because Grover's gone off to do his searcher thing and Annabeth's living with her dad that year.
That's
or
true.
Go back and risk it with his mom, and at least his mom would be around.
Yeah, fair enough. That is actually a really good point. Also, how do we feel about Annabeth's arc re her dad?
Kind of feels a little bit like it's just there to give good reasoning for how Sea of Monsters opens with her. But also, like, the culmination on Annabeth's dad really is what comes in book 3.
Okay.
Yeah. If I remember rightly, the answer is basically visits, but she doesn't live with them anymore.
Okay. So it is a case of they are trying to mend things, though. It's not like...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how adaptation handles that, because...
That's tricky.
There's going to, I think, be a lot of change dynamics based not only on Leah's casting, but on how the show has already changed Annabeth.
My thing is just like, I mean, Percy, I get why you feel that way, considering the fact you have the best mother in the world, but like, clearly Annabeth is not in the same boat. Maybe let's not push her.
Well, I mean, the reason I'm okay with it is because it's always that Annabeth's dad is the one who's trying to broach this subject, because her dad's a smart man. He knows he fucked up.
Okay,
but
because yeah, like
Anything
I was
that causes your 7-year-old to run away from home.
like, it just like, at least in the beginning, it really just came off as like, okay, so you don't want her, and you don't really give a shit about her because you have your own family now, basically. That's how it came off to me.
Well, imagine if you're a fresh doctorate student. You've just finished defending your thesis, and the woman you've been seeing has probably vanished by this point. All of a sudden, there's a baby on your doorstep.
Well, yeah, but still.
You are maybe late 20s, early 30s at best, and all of a sudden you are a single dad without so much as a note as to how it happened. Also, there are freaky ass things trying to kill her all the time.
This is also how you find out that you were dating a Greek god.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess, but in that case, like, I don't know. I guess there's not a good solution, because either you give her up or.
Do you hear that sound? That sound is book 5, Percy.
Pay your
Carrying the
fucking
banner.
child support, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is that every single demigod whose mortal parent gets mentioned has a wackadoo relationship with their mortal parent.
Right. As the relative newcomer, I had a good time with this in spite of some of my gripes. You know, it's his first book. We're not expecting perfection here. I can see why this started capturing all of your imaginations when it did.
Just devoured our brain space forever.
And you know what? You are not stuck with the graveyard that I am with the Turf Wizard series.
Like, that's the thing. The very simple premise of the Greek gods still exist and are popping out kids is very, very fertile ground
Oh,
for
absolutely.
shenanigans.
Absolutely.
And when you're a little baby 12-year-old who's thinking about picking up writing for the first time, making your own demigod is a great way to learn baby's first OC.
Yeah, like like this is the kind of
And again, stop being mean about it on fanfiction websites.
let the kids have fun, you cranks.
Be nicer to OCs, be nicer to reader inserts.
Yeah, it's
Even
like,
when
oh,
that Venn
Original
diagram is a
character,
stack
do
of
not
pancake.
steal.
yes. Yeah, because God forbid people create something new for it, right? Like, what the fuck?
Even when they aren't playing by the canon rules, especially when they're not playing by the canon rules.
It's all fake anyway!
Also, like, technically what we're talking about right now is fanfiction.
Yeah.
This entire podcast is about fanfiction that's legal.
It's Greek mythology. That's exactly it. That's why I want to do an episode about fanfiction at some point. But anyway, yeah, no, this rocks. And since we are doing a whole month of adaptations of this story, I am planning on saving the why does this series endure for the last episode. Final thoughts?
Child me had very good taste.
Yeah, I am really sad that I missed the initial boat on this, because this was a lot of fun. It definitely would have taken over my life if it had hit me at the right age. And again, maybe my childhood stories wouldn't have quite as big of a graveyard in it right now. Who's got stuff to plug?
As we have alluded, I am the host of 6 Degrees of Star Wars, the podcast where we explore all the ways George Lucas's flagship franchise surrounds us, binds us, and penetrates us in the landscape of cinema. Available wherever pods are cast, and I bounce around the wider internet as La Femme Fictionale, so have fun with that. Also, register to vote. Make sure that people you know are registered to vote, because you know assholes are doing that thing where they purge the voter rolls again, and that's not cool. And keep calling your representatives to advocate for ceasefire in Gaza, and also eyes on Venezuela, eyes on Sudan, eyes on... Where else do we need eyes on? There are so many places we need eyes on. We need Argus with his 100 eyes everywhere.
Yeah,
Stay alert, stay informed.
Unfortunately, as far as we know, there are not demigods. We have to be the heroes here.
You can find me on Twitter at Dreams Rebel. The hockey season is less than 70 days out at this point.
Oh no.
Yeah, so prepare yourselves. It doesn't start till October, but like I have other things I'm interested in. You should also be yelling about that. You can also find me on WordPress at filmlion.wordpress.com, where I will probably be starting the Great MCU rewatch within the near future. Stay tuned for that. And you can find me on Letterboxd at punk_skeleton. I'm apparently a fun follow.
And as always, you can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Favor Vieira. You could also follow the show on Twitter at IER Podcast. And if you would like to help us reach the next chapter of our story, please consider leaving us a review or rating us on the podcatcher of your choice, telling all of your friends and family about us. And even better, if you have room in your wallets, please consider donating to our Patreon, our Ko-Fi page, or just the support the show link below. Lightning Thief Month will continue next week with the 2010 film adaptation. And dear listeners, I 100% understand why the fan base was mad about it, but unfortunately, like I said, this was my first entryway into this. So if you want to hear more about that, please come listen. And remember, stories gain power in each retelling.
Thank you.